The night had a strange weight to it, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Lisa walked alone on the sidewalk, her steps slow and tired after a long shift at the diner. The streetlights flickered above her, casting broken shadows that moved when nothing else did. She hugged her jacket tighter around her body, not because of the cold, but because she felt watched. She told herself it was just her imagination, the kind that came when a person was exhausted and alone. A car passed by too slowly. Then another. The sound of an engine lingered longer than it should have. Lisa's heart began to beat faster, each thump louder than the last. She looked down at her phone, pretending to text, pretending she was calm. But her fingers shook. The street was almost empty, the houses quiet, their windows dark. This was the part of town where people locked their doors early and minded their own business. She heard voices behind her. Low at first, then sharper. Laughter that didn't sound friendly. Her steps quickened. She thought about crossing the street, but fear glued her feet to the ground. She had learned long ago that running could make things worse. Still, every instinct inside her screamed danger. One of the voices came closer. Lisa felt it before she saw it, the presence of someone stepping into her space. Her breath caught. She stopped walking. Her mind raced through every warning her father had ever given her, every lesson about staying alert, about never looking weak. But none of that mattered now. She was alone, and the night felt too big. "Hey," a voice said behind her. She turned slowly, her pulse pounding in her ears. There were two men standing a few feet away. Their faces were half hidden by the shadows. Lisa tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her throat felt tight, like it was closing. Then everything happened at once. A figure rushed in from the side, fast and sudden. Someone grabbed Lisa's arm and pulled her back. Before she could even understand what was happening, a boy stepped directly in front of her. His body blocked her view, but she could hear his breathing, quick and uneven. "Get down," he said, his voice loud but shaking. Lisa dropped to the ground without thinking. Her knees hit the pavement hard, but she didn't feel the pain. All she could see was the boy standing between her and the men. He wasn't big or threatening. He looked young, maybe only a few years older than her. His shoulders were tense, his fists clenched, but he didn't move away. The men hesitated. One of them cursed under his breath. The moment stretched, thin and fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Lisa held her breath, afraid that even a small sound might break whatever was keeping them safe. The boy didn't know her. He didn't know her name, her past, or the secrets she carried. He didn't know that her life was already tangled in danger long before this night. He only knew that someone needed help, and he had stepped forward without thinking. Sirens echoed in the distance. Faint at first, then louder. The men backed away, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as they had appeared. The boy stayed where he was until they were gone, until the street felt empty again. Only then did he turn to look at Lisa. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded, tears burning in her eyes. She couldn't find the words to thank him, to explain how close she felt to breaking. She just stared at him, trying to understand why a stranger would risk himself for her. As they stood there under the flickering streetlight, neither of them knew that this moment would change both their lives. The boy had jumped in front of her without knowing who she really was, or who her father was. And Lisa knew, deep in her heart, that the night was far from over. Lisa sat on the cold pavement for a long moment after the danger passed. Her hands were still shaking, and she kept them hidden in her sleeves, embarrassed by how weak she felt. The boy stood a few steps away, giving her space, as if he was afraid one wrong move might scare her. The street felt different now, quieter but heavier, like something unseen was still watching. The sirens faded into the distance, leaving behind an uneasy silence. The boy finally spoke again, softer this time. "My name's Jake," he said. "I didn't mean to scare you. I just saw them following you." Lisa looked up at him. His face was clearer under the streetlight. He had tired eyes, the kind that came from long days and short sleep. There was a small cut on his knuckle, fresh and red. She wondered if he even noticed it. "Thank you," she said. Her voice sounded smaller than she wanted. "You didn't have to do that." Jake shrugged, but his shoulders were still tight. "I couldn't just walk by." Those simple words stayed with her. She had grown up believing that people always chose themselves first. Her father had taught her that the world was dangerous and that kindness often came with a price. Yet here was this boy, a stranger, who had stepped into danger without asking anything in return. They started walking together, slowly. Lisa stayed close to the edge of the sidewalk, and Jake stayed between her and the road. Neither of them mentioned it, but the space he kept felt protective. Lisa noticed how often he glanced behind them, how alert he was, like he was ready for the night to turn on them again. "Do you live nearby?" Jake asked. "A few blocks," Lisa replied. She hesitated, then added, "I usually don't walk this late." Jake nodded. "Yeah. Same here. Tonight just happened." The truth was, Lisa had walked late many times before. She had learned to hide her fear, to act normal. But tonight had cracked something open inside her. Every shadow now felt sharper, every sound louder. She wondered if Jake felt it too. As they walked, Lisa felt the weight of her secret pressing against her chest. She had spent her whole life keeping distance from people, careful not to let anyone get too close. It was safer that way. Anyone who knew who her father was eventually looked at her differently. Some were scared. Others were curious for the wrong reasons. None of them ever really saw her. Jake talked about small things. His job at a repair shop. How he was saving money to leave town someday. His words were simple, but his voice was steady now. Lisa listened closely, not just to what he said, but to how normal it all sounded. His life felt far away from hers, clean and uncomplicated. When they reached the corner near her apartment, Lisa stopped. Her building stood quiet and dark, just another place in the city, hiding its own stories. She turned to face him. "This is me," she said. Jake nodded. He looked like he wanted to say more, then thought better of it. "Just be careful, okay?" Lisa surprised herself. "Would you like to walk up?" she asked, then quickly added, "just to make sure." Jake hesitated, then agreed. They climbed the steps together. With every step, Lisa's heart beat faster, not from fear this time, but from the strange feeling of letting someone closer than she usually allowed. When they reached her door, Lisa unlocked it and paused. Part of her wanted to tell him everything. Another part warned her to stay quiet. The lessons of her childhood whispered in her ear, reminding her that people could get hurt just by standing near her. "Thanks again," she said softly. Jake smiled, small and honest. "Anytime." As he walked away, Lisa watched until he disappeared down the stairs. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, finally letting her breath out. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A missed call from her father. Her stomach tightened. Somewhere deep inside, Lisa knew this was not the end. The boy who stepped in front of her had already crossed an invisible line. And soon, whether she wanted it or not, the world she tried so hard to keep separate would collide with his. Lisa did not sleep that night. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound outside her apartment. The city felt louder than usual. A door slammed somewhere below. A car alarm went off and then stopped. Each noise made her body tense, her mind jump back to the moment on the street when fear wrapped around her chest. She kept seeing Jake standing in front of her, his back to danger, his voice shaking as he told her to get down. It scared her more now than it did then. At least in the moment, instinct had taken over. Now there was only thinking, and thinking made everything heavier. Her phone buzzed again. "This time," she answered. "Where are you?" Her father's voice was calm, but she knew that tone. It was the kind that came before a storm. "Home," Lisa said. "I missed your call earlier." There was a pause. "You shouldn't be walking alone at night." "I know," she replied quietly. He didn't ask if she was safe. He already knew. Someone always knew. That was the part of her life she never talked about. When the call ended, Lisa set the phone down and closed her eyes. She wished, just for once, that her life could be simple. The next morning, she moved through her day like she was underwater. At work, voices sounded distant. Faces blurred together. She kept checking the door, half expecting to see Jake walk in, half afraid of what it would mean if he did. When her shift ended, she left early, choosing busy streets this time, places full of people and light. She told herself that what happened was over. A bad moment. A stranger who did the right thing. Nothing more. But life didn't let it go that easily. As Lisa walked down the sidewalk, she felt it again. That same pull in her chest. The sense of being watched. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Jake across the street, standing near a coffee shop. He wasn't following her. He looked just as surprised to see her as she was to see him. Their eyes met. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Jake lifted a hand in a small, awkward wave. Lisa hesitated, then crossed the street. "Hey," he said. "I was hoping I'd run into you." "Hoping?" Lisa asked, her guard already rising. "Yeah," Jake replied. "I just wanted to check if you were okay. After last night." She studied his face, looking for something hidden. There was nothing. Just concern. Honest and open in a way that made her uncomfortable. "I'm fine," she said. "Thanks to you." They stood there, unsure of what came next. Normal people exchanged numbers. Normal people made plans. Lisa was not normal, and she knew it. "Listen," Jake said carefully, "if you ever need someone to walk you home again." Lisa's heart tightened. She thought of her father. His world. The rules she lived by. She thought of the invisible line Jake had already crossed without knowing it. "That's not a good idea," she said, sharper than she meant to. Jake took a step back, hurt flashing across his face. "Okay. I didn't mean." "I know," Lisa interrupted, softer now. "It's just complicated." She turned to leave before he could ask questions she couldn't answer. As she walked away, guilt burned inside her. She hated pushing him away, hated that kindness came with consequences in her world. That evening, a black motorcycle pulled up outside her apartment building. Lisa watched from her window as her father stepped off, surrounded by men she had known all her life. Leather jackets. Hard eyes. Power that didn't need to be spoken. Her father looked up at her window, as if he could feel her watching. The night on the street had not been random. Danger didn't appear by accident in her life. It followed her. And now, without meaning to, she had let an innocent boy step into its path. Lisa closed the curtain and pressed her forehead against the glass, fear and regret twisting together inside her. She didn't know how to protect Jake from a world he didn't even know existed. But deep down, she feared it was already too late. The days that followed felt slow and heavy for Lisa. She stayed inside as much as she could, avoiding the streets where everything had started. She went to work, came home, and kept her head down. From the outside, her life looked calm. Inside, it was anything but. She kept thinking about Jake. About the way he looked surprised to see her again, like fate had played a trick on him. She wondered if he was angry now, or if he had already forgotten her. Part of her hoped he had. Forgetting would be safer for him. Her father noticed the change in her. He always did. One evening, he sat across from her at the kitchen table. The room smelled like coffee and leather, familiar and uncomfortable at the same time. His presence filled the space without effort. "You seem distracted," he said. "Just tired," Lisa replied, keeping her eyes on her cup. He studied her in silence. "Someone scared you the other night." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "It's over." "Nothing is ever just over," he said calmly. Lisa swallowed. She had learned not to argue. Her father did not raise his voice often. He didn't need to. The power he carried followed him everywhere, even here, even with her. "There was a boy," she said before she could stop herself. Her father's eyes sharpened. "A boy?" "A stranger," Lisa added quickly. "He helped me. That's all." The room felt colder. Her father leaned back in his chair. "Did he see anything?" "No," she said. "He just stepped in. He didn't know who I was." That last part was true, and that was what scared her most. Her father nodded slowly. "People who get close tend to ask questions." "He won't," Lisa said, more like a plea than a statement. Her father stood up. "Make sure of that." After he left the room, Lisa sat there for a long time. Her heart felt tight, like it was wrapped in wire. She loved her father, but she feared the world that came with him. It was a world where loyalty mattered more than mercy, and mistakes had consequences. The next day, Lisa saw Jake again. He was outside the repair shop, wiping grease from his hands. She almost turned away, but it was too late. He had already seen her. "Lisa," he said, smiling like nothing was wrong. Hearing her name from his mouth made something ache inside her. She walked closer, her steps careful. "You shouldn't talk to me," she said quietly. Jake frowned. "Why?" She searched his face, wishing she could tell him the truth. Wishing she could say her life was dangerous, that her father was powerful, that people around her got hurt. Instead, she said nothing. "I don't want you dragged into something you don't understand," she finally said. Jake laughed softly, trying to lighten the moment. "I'm not made of glass." "You don't know my world," Lisa replied. "Then tell me," he said. She shook her head. "I can't." The smile faded from his face. "I helped you because it was the right thing. Not because I wanted something." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "That's why I'm scared." They stood there, the noise of the street moving around them. Jake took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Whatever you're running from, you don't have to do it alone." Lisa stepped back. Fear rushed through her, sharp and urgent. She pictured her father's eyes. The warning in his voice. "Please," she said. "Stay away from me." Jake looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." He didn't argue. He didn't follow her. That hurt more than if he had. That night, Lisa sat by her window again. Motorcycles rumbled in the distance, their sound familiar and unsettling. She knew her father's world was closing in, tightening like a net. And somewhere in the city, there was a boy who had jumped in front of her without knowing the cost. A boy she was trying to push away, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. The fear inside her grew stronger with every passing hour. She could feel it coming. The moment when secrets would break open, and choices would no longer be hers alone. The truth did not come out gently. It arrived like a door being kicked open. 2 nights later, Lisa was leaving work when she saw the black motorcycles lined up across the street. Their engines were off, but the silence they carried was loud. Her chest tightened. She knew before she saw him. Her father stood near the curb, talking to one of his men. His posture was calm, controlled, but his eyes were sharp. When he noticed Lisa, he raised a hand slightly. Not a wave. A signal. She walked toward him, every step heavy. "Get in the car," he said. She obeyed. She always had. They drove in silence. The city lights passed by like ghosts. Lisa's mind raced, trying to understand what had changed. Her father did not move without reason. Something had reached him. Finally, he spoke. "Someone has been asking about you." Her heart dropped. "Who?" "A boy," he said. "Works at a repair shop." Lisa's breath caught. She stared out the window, her reflection pale and scared. "He didn't mean any harm." "Harm doesn't need intention," her father replied. "It only needs access." When the car stopped, Lisa realized where they were. The repair shop. The lot was empty except for one car. Jake's. "No," she whispered. "Please." Her father looked at her. For a moment, she saw something soft in his eyes. Then it was gone. "Stay here." But she didn't. Lisa stepped out of the car and rushed forward. Jake was standing near the open garage door, confused, grease still on his hands. He looked up and saw her first. "Lisa," he said. "What's going on?" Then he saw her father. The jackets. The men. The air changed. "Dad," Lisa said, placing herself between them without thinking. "He's the one who saved me." That night. Her father's eyes shifted to Jake. He studied him slowly, like a problem that needed solving. "You jumped in front of my daughter," he said. Jake swallowed. "I didn't know who she was. I just saw someone in trouble." That honesty surprised everyone, even Lisa. Her father nodded once. "And now you do know." Jake looked at Lisa, then back at her father. The realization hit him hard. The rumors he had heard. The symbols on the jackets. The respect, The fear. I didn't ask for this, Jake said quietly. Neither did she, her father replied. The men watched closely. The night felt tight, like it could snap at any moment. Lisa's hands shook, but she did not move away. He's not part of our world, she said. Let him go. Her father looked at her for a long time. Then he turned back to Jake. Walk away, he said. Forget her. Forget tonight. Jake hesitated. His eyes met Lisa's. There were 1,000 things in that look. Fear. Care. Regret. Okay, he said. He turned and walked to his car. The engine started. The sound felt too loud, too final. Lisa watched until the car disappeared down the street. Only then did she breathe again. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. This is why I warned you. Lisa nodded, tears burning her eyes. She had tried to protect Jake by pushing him away. Instead, she had pulled him closer to danger. As they drove off, Lisa knew one thing for certain. Nothing could ever go back to the way it was. Time passed, but the memory of that night never faded for Lisa. Days turned into weeks, and the city moved on like nothing had happened. People laughed, worked, and lived their normal lives. But inside Lisa, something had changed. A quiet crack had formed, one that never fully healed. She did not see Jake again. She avoided the repair shop, took longer routes home, and kept her head down. Her father kept his word. No one bothered Jake. No shadows followed him. Still, Lisa carried a heavy guilt, wondering if safety was worth the cost of silence. Her father's world remained the same. Meetings, calls, motorcycles coming and going at all hours. He tried to shield her in his own way, but protection felt like a cage. She loved him, yet she longed for a life where fear did not walk beside her. Sometimes, late at night, she stood by her window and thought about Jake. She imagined him working on engines, hands steady, life simple again. She hoped he had forgotten her. She hoped he never told anyone what he had seen. One evening, months later, Lisa was walking through a crowded street market. Lights hung overhead, music played, and people pressed in close. For the first time in a long while, she felt almost normal. Then she saw him. Jake stood across the crowd, holding a paper cup of coffee. He looked older somehow, calmer. Their eyes met for a brief second. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them moved. The moment passed. Jake turned and disappeared into the crowd. Lisa stayed where she was, her heart racing. There was no danger this time. No voices in the dark. Just the echo of what had been. She understood then that courage did not always mean staying. Sometimes it meant walking away and letting go. That night, Lisa returned home and packed a small bag. She left a note for her father. Not angry, just honest. She needed space. She needed to find out who she was without the weight of his world on her shoulders. As she closed the door behind her, fear followed her, but so did hope. She did not know where she was going. She only knew that a boy once stood in front of her without knowing the truth, and that moment had shown her another way to live. And though their paths had separated, the choice he made that night gave her the strength to finally choose herself.